And it looks like I'm live. Hi everybody. Hello and welcome to Geek Speaks Greek. I am your geek, George O'Connor. Clearly speaking English. The Greek I'm in reference is to me speaking about Greek mythology. Every episode of Geek Speaks Greek, I talk about a different personage from Greek mythology, be they goddess, god, hero, or monster. If you watched before, you're going to notice that this is a different setup than usual. Hi from my drawing desk. This is, I have a couple of studio spaces. I have one I share with a bunch of other talented comics artists here in Brooklyn. Haven't been getting there so much ever since the pandemic started. This is my home one. You can always tell when I'm on my home one because the back is full of action figures. Let's see. What else I have a couple of lamps here so as to stop the glare on my drawing board. And while I'm talking to you today, I'm going to be actually penciling pages of the final Olympians book, Dionysus. I'll give you a little flash. Here's a page I just did. I know it's super light, you really can't see much. It is page 38. It's the sequence beginning the story of Dionysus and the Tyrrhenian pirates. So I'm going to be drawing a little of that today. A lot of boats, a lot of stuff. But basically today, as I mentioned when I talked about this in my Instagram post, I had a meeting I just got out of. I have another meeting that starts precisely at 4 o'clock. These are phone meetings, of course, which is just made for a crazy day. And in between this, I'm trying to do some artwork and such. So today, I didn't have a chance to prepare any sort of lesson. Even though you all have given me a lot of really great ideas, there's a few... I was like, I feel like I've got everybody. I didn't get everybody in Greek mythology. So what I thought I would do today is make this mainly a Q&A session. And hey, if nobody shows up and we don't have questions, that's okay too. I could just sit here and draw and we could just slowly talk. However, before we get into that, before we reach that level where I'm just like, nobody's here, nobody's gonna talk, I figure what I would do is I would share a little bit of artwork that people have sent me. If you've ever watched Geek Speaks Greek before, you know that I have the best fans in the world because they're always sending me amazing artwork that they've done, either based on my characters or based on their own interpretations of Greek myth, and sometimes it's just like weird space battles, but it's okay, we don't care, that stuff's all awesome. So up first, this is from Jamie. Now Jamie has been revisiting characters she's drawn before. If you remember, she sent in a picture on Tuesday. We got to see her depiction of Nyx, first as a pencil, then as a full color drawing. Jamie's really good with light. This is a picture that she did. Well, I think you could tell who it is. It's clearly Cellini. Look how great. Like, that looks That looks legit silver. She did such an amazing job with this. It's so beautiful. You can see like this that kind of shines on her. It's a beautiful piece. Thank you so much, Jamie, for sending that in. Let's see what else we have today. And then here, oh, this is really funny. I actually got to check these out because some of the stuff's arrived here. I've been in meetings all morning, so I haven't really got to see most of the stuff. This came in yesterday, or the other day, so I got to actually see this in advance. This is from Moira. Moira sends in stuff a lot. Now, this first one is hilarious. It's taken a little bit. Oh, I'm in a different room, so my internet's going to be worse. Oh no, I hope this isn't all choppy for you all. So, first off, it's a bunch of... Oh my, what's that background? That's not my house, it's her house. It's a bunch of lady centaurs. Look how cute they are. I like this one who's like, I think she's like a spotted palomino. And like, look at the braids and stuff. And the caption, because it's backwards, I'll read, "The lady centaurs are in hiding because the male centaurs are acting like they're drunk." Which sounds terrifying. I mean, it's not pleasant being around drunk people anyway. When drunk people are grafted onto horses, so they're like drunk people who weigh like 800, 900 pounds and they're galloping about and being rowdy. Yeah, I totally get why they're hiding. Like, so again, look how cute that is. I love it. And then she also sent a picture of, well, I think you're going to tell what this is. It's Athena with an owl. I don't know if this was inspired by my recent story of being terrorized by owls, aka devil birds. If you missed that one, I didn't bring my papers. Well, you guys all know it. Go, you can watch it at my YouTube, which is YouTube, George Olympians. Wow, I don't remember. I hold this up like every day. This is like the 50th episode. It's also here on Instagram TV. You can hear my story. I kind of go off on a random thing about owls and how scary they are when you're in the middle of the woods during a thunderstorm and your power goes out just as you enter in the house, and then the owls start hissing at you. Not going hoo-hoo, hissing at you. So yeah, it was that inspired me to do a thing on Athena's Aegis on Tuesday. Maybe Athena was trying to send a message to me. I'm not really sure. So this is some stuff I haven't seen yet. So here we have, this is from Eleanor. I always love Eleanor's drawings. First is her portrait of Zeus and Hera, which, I mean, I love it. Look at his lightning bolt. I like that they're holding hands. I love this. This is great. I was actually doing a lot of stuff this morning for a project about Hera, so that was really appropriate. And then this one is her depiction of the Aegis. Now, we talked about how sometimes in mythology, in art, the Aegis is depicted as a cape, which is the route I went with, but then sometimes it's depicted as a shield. You could see that Eleanor with the shield, you could see the face of the Gorgon Medusa on there. It kind of looks like it's a three-dimensional element put on there. Kind of looks like maybe it's a rippled potato chip, which would be a pretty good way of stopping people attacking you if you have a giant potato chip, because it gets stale enough they're not going to break through it. Plus, you might get them to eat it, and then you can knock their teeth out. I don't know. That's very violent. Why did I say that? Let's see what else we have today. I have to say, didn't get an enormous amount of artwork today, but that's okay. Now, up next, this is actually kind of cool. So, Yehi is a fan who always sends in, this amazing art. And then Megan is a fan who always sends in amazing art. For whatever reason, I don't know why, Megan has not been able to get her email to send to me, so sometimes I'm just not able to get it beforehand, but apparently she can get her email to send to Yehi. So this is like a joint thing. They've done artwork together, if you recall. There are times when Megan draws something and Yehi colors it in. But today, this is like a joint email from both Yehi and Megan. So hi guys, I really love that my fans are getting together and becoming friends. So first, here is a picture. I mean, this is like a whole beautiful scene, and I love the way there's the stuff receding into distance, and we have Athena there. I'm not sure who she's speaking to. And then there's a figure wandering through the background who's kind of just waving hello, but look at the attention to detail and the fountain, and there's the owl. I don't know, Megan does these amazing stories. I wish I knew exactly what that story was. Now this is also really cool. We also know Megan likes to ship Hermes and Athena together. So here's Hermes and Athena, but there's Apollo there. And I don't think this is a weird threesome sort of thing, or I don't think I don't think Athena's stepping out with Apollo. I think maybe it was one of his lovers just saying, it's possible. But I think this is, I think it's just because there is myths where the three of them hang out. Oh, I just lost my page. Specifically, if you think about it, the myth where Athena invents the Aeulos. It's her hanging out with Apollo and Hermes. So maybe it's just one of those instances. I feel like Apollo and her don't have a lot to say to each other directly, but they have Hermes there to be the social lubricant. And then just this great portrait of Athena holding up. Do we think it's tea? Do we think it's coffee? Perhaps it's something different. Maybe it's some sort of warmed over nectar. I don't know, but that's just a great drawing. Megan's you're getting, if you're here, Megan, oh, you are here. Hi, Megan. You are getting really, really good at this. Your drawing is improving by leaps and bounds. Uh-oh. This one, I didn't get to see in advance, but this one is backwards. So let's see if we can read it. Let's see. It's Artemis riding Archimedes. And I think this is a collaboration. I think this is Megan with Yehi drawing, and I can't read the first part. Huh? Hera, did you see Nike and Archimedes? Oh, it's not Artemis, it's Nike. Oh, we talked about Nike. And it makes sense. Nike's kind of... see, I talked about how Nike, the goddess, because we have some fans of Nike here, but Nike in art is often depicted as a smaller attribute. She's there's literally pictures where she's being held in the hands. So this isn't a giant Archimedes, the pet owl of Athena. This is just a normal-sized Archimedes who's being ridden by a tiny goddess. I like it. It's kind of like Ant-Man or the Wasp or something. Then we have, here's Chiron and his tutors. I guess it would actually be his, Oh no, he was being, yeah, that was, I got mixed up there. So we talked about in the episode on centaurs how Chiron was trained in hunting by Artemis. She's like, come on, this way. And he was trained in the healing by Apollo. And if you look closely, there's a bunch of herbs and stuff there. I thought at first that was blood, but I think it's just a cloth he's on there. So here's Chiron being taught by both these two gods, the twins. And then we have one more piece coming here. Oh, I hope it loads up. I hope, by the way, seeing that, internet has been bad ever since the the pandemic started. I am maybe only about 20 feet away in my apartment from where I actually have my router, and sometimes I just can't get internet at all. So hopefully this is coming clear for you. Oh, this piece. Okay. I love this. I saw this on Yehi's Instagram page. It's kind of like a playing card image, where one side is Athena, and the other side is Medusa. Now, it's because I'm holding this in a digital thing, it's just gonna flip. It's just gonna show, but like, this is an image, like it's meant to be seen either way up. Like, I'll do it really quickly. Nope, it's not gonna work. So, it's such, and like, do you see like the painted details she put in there? Like, yeah, he's getting so good. Look at the subtle lights and stuff on this. This is so great. So, Yehi, thank you so much for sharing that. And looks like I had like one more thing. Oh, this is kind of cool. So this is by Addie. It's going to take a while. Oh, no. And it is her drawing of Amphitrite. And remember, Amphitrite is one of those characters who's like literally appeared for one Pan Olympian. So I did her in like a special week where I kind of designed characters like while I talked to you. And there's a few traits that we decided that she has. This is actually from Antiquity. She has crab claws in her hair, which seems like a weird thing to do, but I guess it works like a banana clip. And then she has like a dress, which is kind of like a fisher net. But then she drew her surrounded by all these different animals. Like this looks like an enormous, it's either the underside of a whale. Well, it's almost definitely the underside of a whale with like baleen. And I can see jellyfish. I can see different porpoises. There's a shark. There's some seahorses. It's all amazing. So thank you so much. I think that's all the artwork that I got today. If I missed anything, I apologize. But I think that's it. So, hi. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this unusual episode of Geek Speaks Greek. And I'm very appreciative that you're indulging me just to do kind of a low-key Q&A. It's kind of a busy time here. You'll actually notice there's this giant construct to my side. This is a couch. Bought it from hitting my lamp. I bought a new couch recently. Can't keep it out in the rest of my house because the evil kittens are, like, literally it was in the house for 20 seconds and they're like, this rips up with claws. So I'm hiding it here on its edge until I do my move at the end of the month. So it's just going to be a cuckoo bananas time for me. I'm working all the time, doing all kinds of stuff. Oh, I got a compliment on my nice shirt, and I want to draw attention to it. For those of you who don't know, this is a shirt. I'm being that guy. This is a shirt I drew myself. This is a shirt I drew. Actually, we all know Word Bookstores. Word Bookstores is the independent bookstore that actually I started doing Geek Speaks Greek as a way of benefiting. Back when the quarantine first started, like about 48 years ago, I was on Word's Instagram feed doing this, and all of you have followed me over here. But this was a shirt I did. I donated this artwork. It says "Shelf Care is Self Care." Okay, and you can get that at Word if you want. I know, actually, I went to Word for the first time since all this started to sign some copies of my new book on Rig, and this is on the door, so I felt like pretty famous. I was like, I'm a famous guy, I'm on the door of a bookstore, I win. So, let's see. So today, while I'm taking your Q&As, I'm going to be penciling a page. I'm going to show you the page up close. So this is the page I just showed you before that was already in a finished penciled state. Starts, we see here's a close-up of the Tyrrhenian pirates. They're literally saying good morning, and they're all pointing their spears in Dionysus' face, and he's like, hi. Then we see their boat, and Dionysus is brought on the boat in ropes. He's all tied up. And this one guy, Acoetes, he's the pilot. He sees Dionysus for what he is. The rest of them are like, this guy is like super pretty and he's like dressed really well, even though he's clearly wearing a leopard skin, which I guess that's nice, but I also give him like a purple robe he's laying on. Like, he must be like the son of a prince, or like, which would make him a prince, or like a merchant's son or something. And like, he's gonna be worth a lot of money. Let's take him and ransom him. And Acoetes is like, are you nuts? Have you seen how pretty this guy is? He's definitely a god. And then they have a fight. He's yelling at the captain. Acoetes is yelling at him. He's like, I'm not going to let you do this. And they get in a struggle. And then the next page, somebody smacks Acoetes from behind, and they set off for sail with Dionysus chained up to be, ransomed. As you might imagine, it's not going to go well for those pirates because, it's probably not a good idea. Kidnapping an Olympian, even though this is pre-Olympian. This is Dionysus when he's still on Earth. He's still being a mortal guy. He's got a lot of powers, though. He's got pretty much the full Olympian set. He just hasn't descended to Olympians yet, like level yet. Let's see. So do we have any questions? We do. If Tony Stark had a patron Greek god, which would it be? Oh, it's clearly Hephaestus. Now, that's interesting because Hephaestus is a pretty down-to-earth god, and he'd be pretty chill. He's not as glib as Tony Stark. Tony Stark, you know, is like, he's always the smartest guy in the room. Like, you put him in a room with, like, Alexander Hamilton, and, like, Alexander Hamilton's like, why do you have to be the smartest in the room? And he's a bit of a jerk. Even more than Alexander Hamilton. Like, you know, Tony Stark's a jerk. And Hephaestus is kind of a nice guy. But Hephaestus, he's basically doing the Tony Stark routine years before there's Tony Stark. He doesn't make himself a suit of armor, but he makes a bunch of robots. So think like Ultron or something, right? Or like just the armor when it motivates itself. He's got his automatons. He's all about making armor and weapons for the gods. He makes beautiful things. He expresses himself through his ingenuity. And he's Hephaestus. I always say that the two smartest gods are probably Athena and Hermes. But Hephaestus is smarter in like a tech way, that in a way that they can't even compare. Even Hermes, who has a gift for invention too. That's not really so much Athena's bag. I think, yeah, he would definitely be Hephaestus. And if he met Hephaestus, he, like Tony Stark and Hephaestus would get together and just like geek out hard. And Tony Stark would probably teach him some cool stuff about transistors. That's, man, if you read old 1960s Iron Man comics, everything is transistors. That's all Stan Lee knew. Like Iron Man's like, these transistors in my boots will help me grow roller skates. It's like, that's really something that would happen. And like, you know, Hephaestus would show him how to make living robots, and then he would create a new Ultron and we'd all die. So that would be great. If the T. Mackey writes, if the gods, oh, it just scrolled up too quick. Not Athena or Hermes. No, I don't think so. Sorry. I don't think it would be, I think it's definitely Hephaestus. Tony Stark is a techspert, not a cunning guy. He would probably wish it were Athena and Hermes, but it would definitely be Hephaestus. T. Mackey asks, if the gods were quarantined for whatever reason, if the 12 were locked down to Olympus, what would they be doing? It's really funny you asked this, T. Mackey. I just wrote today for a project a kind of like detailed breakdown of what each... So Olympus is where like the big gods live, right? And I was kind of writing a detailed breakdown of what their private quarters would look like. Like, you know, whenever I show Olympus in the comic series, we kind of see them in their main areas. There have been glimpses. If you take a look, I do show the inside of their rooms occasionally, because they all have separate palaces, part of the palaces of Olympus. So, okay, what would they be doing? Athena would probably be weaving or reading. I heard inside room, I feel it's a lot of libraries, and there's some beautiful tapestries that stuff the private area that nobody gets to see, nobody know how. That's like where she sleeps, if she sleeps, whatever she does, the stuff that Athena does by herself, because Athena's secretive. But what she would do, she would probably be like reading, learning, using this as an opportunity to better herself, because that's Athena. Hermes would be everywhere at once, because that's what Hermes is. In fact, I decided Hermes probably doesn't even have rooms, because he only exists in liminal spaces. As the god of boundaries, he just exists to break boundaries. So you would only find Hermes as you were walking from one place to another. He'd be there in the hallway, maybe. Dude's too busy. Does he even sleep? I don't know. And if he does sleep, he's the guy that brings dreams to you. Who brings their dreams to him to sleep? I don't think Hermes sleeps. I think he just goes 24/7 nonstop. So he's just going to be going around looking for trouble, doing whatever he can. Apollo would be kind of relaxing, but he would be kind of retreated to the area that he shares with the Muses. And the Muses would all be in full-on creative mode. So that would be like a wonderful place to come visit. It'd be like Apollo singing, playing music, there'd be dancing, there'd be people looking at the stars, there'd be people reciting history lessons, there'd be everything. That would be the spot to be. Artemis would be, I mean, she's like, you know what, social distancing? I get it. You know where I'm going to be? Away from everybody. She's going to be in the woods somewhere. She's going to be like 6 leagues away from anybody, so she doesn't have to worry about that. Zeus is going to be slowly seething, wanting to be out and doing stuff. He's going to be staring. He's going to see some pretty piece like out 100 miles away, but Hera is going to be sticking to him like glue. And I think she's going to be enjoying the fact that he's, while also being annoyed, because probably, even if you love someone very much, being cooped up with them all the time is really annoying. And Zeus already starts off really annoying, but I think she would really kind of enjoy having this opportunity to really put the screws to Zeus. Who else am I forgetting here? Hades wouldn't be there. He'd be down in the underworld. And let's just assume that that's where Persephone is as well. Demeter, I picture Demeter's like living quarters being a huge open space that actually literally has fields growing in it, right? Even though it's on Olympus. Like Olympus is interdimensional, right? It intersects with ours, but like you can't climb to the top of Mount Olympus and be in the palaces of the gods. And she'd probably just be there, and she'd probably be a little bit sad because her daughter's there, but I like to think she's come to a grip where she realizes her daughter needs breathing space too. So she's just kind of like laying down in like a thrice plowed field, just having thoughts. Ares would be fantasizing about murder. This is going to assume this is now, so Aphrodite is no longer with Hephaestus. Hephaestus is going to be working down in his forge, of course. Aphrodite, actually, maybe she's hanging out with Ares. Maybe they're doing things, you know what I'm saying? Poseidon, bottom of the ocean, same thing. He's like, I'm not sticking around here. I figure he has like a pool he can swim down into there. And looking at, I have another poster of mine here, in case you know I was looking this way when I'm in the other room. I think I got the 12, right? Did I leave anybody out? Oh, Hestia. Hestia, of course. Inscrutable Hestia. She just sits there, smiling at the center of it all, with a very self-satisfied grin on her thought. What are her thoughts? We don't know. We won't know. You'll see what her thoughts or thinks about in Dionysus, which I'm drawing right now. Let's see what else we got. Do tigers appear in any Greek myths? That's from Elsie Giuntoli, 28. That's a great question. And I'm thinking, so Dionysus famously leads a war on India. He actually takes his it's the subject of the longest epic poem there is, something called the Dionysiaca by this guy Nonus. It's so long I've never read it. It's so long I suspect no one who is alive has read it. It's very, very long. But he does spend a lot of time traveling through India. Now, it's written from the point of view of somebody who doesn't know India that well, but even someone who doesn't know India that well knows there's tigers. I am pretty sure there are some tigers that he encounters, especially because such a big part of Dionysus' retinue is often shown, like he's traveling, everybody knows he travels with the Bacchantes, and he travels with like satyrs, and he travels with like, a whole bunch of drunk guys, and he's normally got a few panthers in there too. And I'd be pretty stunned if he doesn't pick up a tiger or two, because I know I would if I had the opportunity. Will any of Dionysus' adventures from the frogs be in your book? Have you had a chance to listen to the Sondheim version? I listened to one song from the Sondheim version I found on YouTube, but thanks for reminding me. There is going to be, there is a nod to Aristophanes' The Frogs. It's not even that subtle. You'll see it. Like, I mean, there's literally, he's going down the road, there's a frog right there. Like, there's a pretty big nod. And then there was a section I had to cut out of this book. There was going to be, which was based very directly on it. There was a section, there's a part in The Frogs where Heracles and Dionysus have a discussion. And it's very funny, even by like modern standards. You're like, oh, that's pretty good. And I really wanted to include that scene. And it just, I couldn't find a way to work it into Dionysus. Basically, I ran out of space. It was really hard to figure out how to work it in a way that chronologically made sense. So what I'm 98% sure I'm going to do, if you've ever been to my website, georgeoconnorbooks.com, you know that if you enter your name on my mailing list, you get sent an exclusive Digital Olympians comic. It's a short comic. It's got like Apollo in it, it's got Pan in it, it's got King Midas. I mean, you probably figured the story just from hearing all those things. But I'm thinking I'm going to make a short comic, just like 3 to 5 pages probably, of Dionysus and Heracles, which is going to be based directly on Aristophanes. So, yeah, you will see some of that too. But there is a little bit already in Dionysus. Let's see. Yeah, he writes, searched for Medusa image and she had small wings on her forehead. What could it be? That's something that you see a lot. Some of the images of Medusa, I've probably mentioned the term a Gorgonian here. Gorgonium. That was a picture of the Gorgon used to ward off evil. It was often in like kind of a circular image. To tie in with the whole idea of the Aegis, how sometimes it's a shield, you'll actually see sometimes in other texts Athena's shield being referred to specifically as a Gorgonium, like her head, the head Medusa was transmuted into the shield, which is used to ward off. And then you do see the wing motif kind of come in there. You don't see it often where like it's Medusa who, like when she's alive, you don't often see her with wings. Though I'm pretty sure that has happened, especially not just wings in her head, which would be a really awkward way to fly. She'd be like kind of getting dragged around by your head and be like your body's flapping. It would be less than impressive looking. I'm not really sure of the exact like reasoning behind that. Maybe it's to show swiftness, because I know that's what the wings on Hermes were to show. Maybe it was to show stealthiness, because I know that's the wings on Hypnos were for. Maybe it's just that somebody just thought it looked cool. Like maybe they decided her head have a life of its own, and since it has no body anymore, that's how it gets around. It uses wings. What if there's a god of beer? I put that in Long Live Mead and Metis. That would be cool. I mean, I think I've mentioned here before, there is a story I'm retelling in Dionysus about his battle with King Lycurgus. And normally, most versions of this story, King Lycurgus is just a man who is sober. He doesn't like Dionysus coming to town. This reflects things that really did happen in the ancient world, like how in Rome, for years, you were not allowed to worship Dionysus because he's so disruptive. His role is to disrupt social order. So basically, in most versions of stories, Lycurgus is like, you're not walking your army through here, get out. But there is one version of the myth where it's Lycurgus is a beer drinker. And he's like, you're not coming here with your wine, we drink beer. And he lets out a huge belch, and then they like slams down a beer stein and they fight. I made up that last bit, but that's pretty cool. I know CVQ Lama is working on this the comic Long Live Metis, and I think you had mentioned, CVQ, that you were going to be doing your own Instagram Live for that, and I hope that people will tune in to see that when you announce that. And I hope if you have announced it, I didn't miss it. I'm not really good about being social media these days. Follow up to Yehi's question. This is from Have No Olivia, or Haven Olivia. It's probably Haven Olivia. Have No Olivia. It could be Have No Olivia. Olivia was a Roman name. Do any other gods have wings in odd places? Well, Hermes has them on his feet, Hypnos, and his helmet. Actually, it's his sandals. Although sometimes in art you see it directly attached to his feet. Hypnos, as I mentioned, has it kind of growing out of his brow line. Like, sometimes you'll see that sculpture and you think it's Hermes, but Hermes is pretty consistently portrayed by the Greeks at least as not having the wings attached. They're on his helmet because he's got to be super good looking. I'm not saying wings are unattractive, but it's definitely going to be kind of like a whoa when we see him. Who else has weird wings? I'm looking at my poster, see if anybody else does. Nike, she often has wings. They're not weird. Well, they are, because humans don't have wings in their back. The whole idea of having extra wings is just weird, because, we're all, what's the tetrapods? We all have 4 limbs, right? And then, you have wings. If it's not your arms becoming wings, then you have 6 limbs, and then you're like an insect. That's pretty weird. And then there's Iris. She has wings on her back, too. Weird places, though. I feel like you're talking, stuff. The wings in the back, that's an image we're pretty used to. Feet, I guess, we're pretty used to. Head, I even guess, we're pretty used to. I don't know. I feel like somebody's got to have wings in their fingers, right? Doesn't that sound like a song? Oh, that's rings around your fingers. All right. Does Demeter think Hera is foolish for being Zeus's husband? Do any of Hera's siblings feel badly for her crazy marriage with difficult Zeus? Zeus's wife, yeah. Oh, I didn't even catch that until you corrected it. That's interesting. I've done some writing about that too. I feel like Demeter, even though, keep in mind, Demeter's been with Zeus too. After all, Zeus is the father of Persephone, or Kore. So I think she gets it in some way. And I think I think that she supports her sister. I like to think that the bond between Demeter and Hera was too strong that they couldn't let... Zeus probably tried to create some trouble there because it would have him to have these 2 incredibly powerful goddesses neutralize each other. But I feel like he couldn't sunder that bond. They're like, no, we're sisters first. You're a creep, even though you're actually a brother. I feel like Hades probably feels some sympathy for her because he's a pretty decent guy for the most part, especially as far as gods go. But as far as gods go, he's like, Gandhi. He's like super nice. And then Poseidon, God, I wonder. I feel like Poseidon probably has some sympathy for Hera too, because of that little snippet of myth that we have related to us by Thetis in the Iliad, where Athena, Poseidon, and Hera unite forces to bind Zeus. And I feel like even though that's kind of maybe a case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, they all realized they had reasons to be mad at Zeus, he had to have at least appreciated that for some reason, even though I'm sure Poseidon is sharp enough to realize a lot of the stuff she doesn't like is stuff I do to my queen and, various other people. So I think they probably feel, but I also feel like there's something in the godly temperament where they just kind of expect this more. Maybe it's something with being immortal. Maybe it's the fact that, like I like to revisit a lot, they're actually not really human. So they assume human forms, they behave in human ways, but there is still a gulf between, the divine and humanity. And there's still some things they do. Like, we see this in stories over and over again, where the gods are capable of insane cruelty. They could do awful, awful things and kind of snap back from it really quickly. So I feel like even though he's the world's worst philanderer, it's not as damaging to her as it would be if somehow, like, my girlfriend cheated on me 900 times, which I would have to give her mad props for, just for having, like, a long enough lifespan to do that. But which ones of the gods would be the first and last ones to lose their mind because of the family in quarantine? That's from Little Cereal. That's a great question. Like, that's really fun because as much as we all love our family, I'm sure we've all had moments where we're like, oh my God, I'm going to, like, flip out and just, go crazy. See, I answered this question before where I kind of spelled out ways I think they would all entertain. Oh, Zeus. Zeus goes nuts first, I think. Absolutely. I think Zeus, he's an impatient god. He sometimes is good at playing the long game, as he did, like with the Trojan War. He could sometimes do stuff, but like with his family, I think he's like a man of action. He likes to jump right into it. And he's also got a wandering eye. He likes to get off and have his quote-unquote adventures. I think he would go nuts first. Last, oddly, and even though I mentioned how I think Athena would do a pretty good job. Oh, you know who else would? If she really couldn't get away, Artemis would go totally nuts. If Artemis was stuck near her family, she would be like shooting arrows into their faces. They wouldn't hurt them, but I feel like Athena would actually have problems if she couldn't entertain herself too. I feel like Athena, as smart as she is, there's just some parts of the human experience that really elude her, and like she just wouldn't quite. She's already the smartest and nobody else is as smart as her. She's like, why aren't you as smart as me? And I feel like she wouldn't quite understand that. Last one to lose their mind, the one who would deal the best with it, I think Ares, because he would feed off the strife. I think he'd just be kind of sitting there silently in the corner. He's not a guy who talks much. He'd just be enjoying everything, and as people are getting each other's throats, he's like, right on. Like, just digging it. Like, yes, yes. All these people who always think they're better than him and act like they're smarter than him, he'd be the one being like, yes, just be the biggest jerks. I don't care. This is awesome. Oh, look, my dad's flipping out. Oh, he's crying now. This is delightful. I think Ares would be the last one. That's a great question. This is a great point, and I think I am a subscriber to this belief. Praetor 1983 writes, could the head wings of Medusa, often seen in works like Caravaggio, yes, be related to the Pegasus connection? I'm going to say yes. I think that's probably a great idea, yeah. Especially because we see a lot of times in those old stories, they do like to pay a little bit of attention to, like, the parents having some traits of, like, the kids. Like, remember how I was talking about the different versions of, like, the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, and how I think it's Hesiod himself, who he kind of, like, only grouped together, like, the kids who were actually kids. They all had multiple heads. Like, the grandkids, like, characters like the Sphinx, which he considered a grandkid, they had only one head, because that gets into the family tree later. But he's like, you know what? Typhon has 100 heads, his kids have 100 heads. So, makes sense. So, Poseidon is a horse a lot, so that's where the horse part comes in, and she has wings, so that's where the wings part come in. I'm sold. I think you just figured it. You cracked the case. Way to go. There is a being with a human body and donkey or rabbit ears in your books. Does he have a name? What is he? He is Silenus. He has appeared in little points. People have noticed him and are horribly freaked out by him. He is going to play a major role in Dionysus. In fact, I don't have the pages nearby. I would show you like a quick drawing of him. He's fun. He's like a satyr, but instead of getting donkey, he's like the boss of the satyrs, and instead of getting donkey parts, he's often given horse parts, but he still has the donkey ears. Maybe, I don't know. He doesn't really get too much horse parts, you really think about it. He's just like a weirdly dumpier and a little bit more on the human side satyr. He's really fun. He's kind of adult, and but like, is he even? He's not even. He's like how do I put his character? The way I write him, at least. He's like a wise fool. He's literally the dude after the first childhood. The first two childhoods of Dionysus go belly up due to various reasons. Hermes takes the baby Dionysus to the last place on earth where anybody would think to look for him and put him with the most disreputable people he could find, and that is Silenus and the satyrs. And that ends up being the perfect spot for Dionysus to have finally a good childhood. Can I draw a baby Athena and Artemis? We don't see their face in the book series. We don't see baby Artemis? I think you do. Maybe we don't see her as a baby. We definitely see her when she's a young girl. And we see her as she grows up really quickly and helps her mom deliver Apollo. Baby Athena, we might actually not. I would have to do some design for that. Maybe I'm not at my just rough drawing board today. Next time I'm at that, maybe I'll draw like a baby Athena. I would have to think about what she looks like, honestly. I mean, I've drawn a lot of babies now, and babies, I guess, don't look that different, especially if you're drawing cute babies. Like, babies come in two varieties. They come cute, and they come like horrible, ugly olive loaves. I don't think any of the Olympians look like horrible, ugly olive loaves, so I gotta find a way to distinguish baby Athena. Probably a very serious baby. Probably like when she was born, she's like, I'm not crying, baby. Although we don't have any reason to assume that she's as precocious as Hermes. I don't know if you've read the latest issue of Long Live Metis, but do you think if Hestia's family was in danger, she would fight? Absolutely. You can actually... There is a brief shot of her fighting in Athena when they are fighting the Gigantomachy. I draw her. She's jumping out. She's on fire. I think you even see... You literally see her setting a Gigante on fire at some point. Why do you pencil your work very lightly? Is that something you came up later when your skill got better, or is that a method from an earlier stage? I pencil my work lightly because... Let me see if I could grab a page with inks on it. Oh, you guys will get to see a page you haven't seen yet. I pencil it lightly because once I do inks, right? So here's an inked page of Dionysus. It's very large. I have to make those pencil lines disappear. And I also want to be very clear. You could probably... Can you see any pencil lines in here? Let me see if I can first. I did a pretty good job erasing this. You could see, maybe if you look really closely at this, you could still see traces of pencil lines. I do it very lightly just so it's easier to erase and so it's very clear when I'm going over in pen and ink so that you don't see... I know what I've inked over. Also, it is a matter... I think you hit it in a little bit, Yahi. I don't need to do my pencils as detailed as I used to. In fact, I could if I wanted. I prefer not to because drawing the same thing really tight a couple times is really boring, honestly. So if I spend all my time working on every detail in pencil, then when I get to inks, I'm just tracing over lines, and I hate that. I hate it. So what I normally do is I kind of just draw almost like stick figures. I don't really go into great detail. I just draw enough detail that I'll be able to know that I have the proportions right, that I have the word bubbles in the right place, stuff like that. And then I could go over, knowing at this point I'm comfortable enough with pen and ink, I can go over and just actually draw the finished artwork. And I know actually, yeah, you've asked about this before. I'm going to show you some of my tools for inking, because they're right here. These are my G-nibs. I have a few at any given time, because as you use a nib, you're running it over the paper, it does wear down. This one, you'll notice, says, well, it's backwards, says thin. This one on the back says thick. I actually moved the tape down on the thing so I know that offhand, which is this is an older one. I've been using this one for a while, so the pen point has gotten a bit worn down. It's got, ink built into it. There's a hair stuck to it because I put it on a paper towel. The lines that this one makes tend to be a little bit thicker. So if I'm inking a page where there's a thick line, if you look, for instance, around Zeus's face, or Hermes' cape right here, I normally use this pen to do that one. And then in a little bit, I'm going to throw this pen away. It's getting to the point where I've worn it out. So, and then I'll just move on to the next cycle. Now this is the most recent pen I put on, and this is the one I'll use for drawing really fine details, which... Is there any really... This page doesn't really have too much fine details. If there... Maybe the characters here of Zeus and Hermes. That was probably drawn with this pen or an intermediate pen. Where I just... Because this is a newer pen line. It's still... The metal's not been deformed. It's still sharp. And I could still kind of use it to draw these really fine, sharp details. Was it hard to master the style that you use for Olympians? Because it is for me. Well, CVQ Lama, if you mean mastering, if you mean by it was hard to draw like me, yeah, it's probably always going to be a little bit harder to draw in imitation of somebody else. The style I did for Olympians, I mean, it comes from myself. There's a lot of influences I look at it. There's a lot of artists who have really influenced me. Like P. Craig Russell is one, Mike Mignola is another, Jaime Hernandez is a third. Tons of people. There's tons of artists who have influenced my work over the years. But I'm not, at this point of my career, I'm not looking at these people and trying to copy them or emulate them directly. I've just spent many, many hours looking over their work, poring over their work, absorbing their work, and it comes out through my artwork. Also, just the way I naturally draw. And here's an interesting tip, idea, not even a tip. Everyone's style, what you call the style, it's just the shortcuts you've come up with. Because basically, the stuff that identifies your style is anything that's an abstraction from what is really in front of you. You know how some people will draw completely photorealistic pictures and like it looks like they took a photo? You really can't pick out their style because they're drawing everything exactly as it is. Their style is photorealism, but like you could put a black and white photo in front of them and they're like, maybe it's the exact same thing, who knows? Somebody like me who has a style where it's kind of, I'm cartoony, I draw fast, I like to put a lot of like feeling into it, like cartooniness. That's my shortcuts. So that's just the way I draw naturally, if that makes sense. And it's a matter of practice. It's hard in that it spends a lot of time, I have to spend a lot of time getting there, but it's fun because it's the way I draw. Scott Saglione writes, could Superman defeat an Olympian? Depends. I mean, maybe he could defeat Wonder Woman. I don't think he could personally because she's got magic and that's one of his weaknesses. There is a comic called Injustice. It's a really popular comic right now. It's a world where Superman's gone bad. He's actually more powerful than he is now and he's taken over the world. And there is a issue where he goes up against Zeus, Wonder Woman's dad. And he's like, he's Superman. He's super raging. He's like, everybody always says in these fights, like, what if Superman is murderous rage? This is Superman in murderous rage. He comes at Zeus as fast as he can, and Zeus just goes like that and defeats him, like backhands him, like nothing. And like Superman's on the ground like, oh, and he's like, yeah, come on, I'm an Olympian. I don't think he could. Superman has very overwhelming physical force and very specific stuff, but Olympians go beyond physical. Olympians control the matter of creation. So, like, maybe if, like, Ares chose to fight him purely on the physical realm, it would be a match. But Ares can, like, alter reality. All the gods can. So I think they should be able to defeat Superman, if you're being written correctly. There's stuff called plot armor in comics. That's how people think Batman can fight Superman. Superman can move at, like, the speed of light. Even if Batman outwits him, like, Batman can outwit him 90 times, and he would still have enough time to defeat Batman. It's silly. Superman's just too powerful. That's another discussion for another day. Is there a particular reason why, when I do my little Olympians version of Zeus, you can't see his eyes? Oh, I actually had a sticker nearby. But these are the little Olympians. This is some stickers I made, little designs. And, yeah, I do draw... I never thought of that. You can see all their eyes, except for Hades. And you can't see Zeus's eyes. I don't know. I think it just was funny as I drew them. I think it's partially to show that he's a tricksy little guy, too. One of the things I did... There was a comic I drew for some magazine years ago. I'll try to find this. I don't remember what it was. But it was basically a little comic with... It was one of the first times I drew the Little Olympians characters. It was a Little Olympian Zeus and a Little Olympian's Hades. It might even be the first time I drew them. And maybe I just hadn't designed them with eyes yet. And I just kind of thought it was funny that the two brothers didn't have eyes. It was like a weird little comic about them talking about, I think, the seasons. I'll try to find it. I don't know. Just kind of works for me that you can't see his eyes. Do I have any regrets with the drawing or narrative today, now that you're at the end? I mean, big picture, I don't think so. I'm pretty happy and proud of what I've accomplished with Olympians. Small picture, depending on the mood, and I think this is true of almost any comics artist, I could pick up any... I don't have any near me or I would do it. I could pick up... No, I don't. I thought maybe I did. I could pick up any issue of Olympians, any volume of Olympians, and on one page probably point out a dozen things that are drawn slightly incorrectly, but that's okay. I mean, that's just part of, like, that's part of my... Again, going back to the idea of, like, drawing photorealistically, that's never been my bag. For me, art is very performative. I like to draw these comics in a way that makes me feel good as I draw them. So that means fast and loose and cartoony and exaggerated. And sometimes later some panels look weird to me, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes I'll draw a panel that I think looks like terrible at the time, and I look at it later, I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool. So I don't think there's anything huge narrative-wise that would have changed. No, I think sometimes, I mentioned this in the episode where I did the Fates and the Furies together, that I maybe wouldn't have made them, like, I wouldn't have conflated the two, which is something I did purposefully. That's not really something you see very much in antiquity. That's something you see a lot nowadays. People bring the two together, they throw the Norns in there, all the gods and goddesses of threes. It's very common to see them confused, deliberately or not. And I maybe wouldn't have done that now, but even then, I'm not sure. It's something I sometimes say is a stock answer, but when I actually was like doing the episode, I remember like, oh, I'm actually pretty cool with the fact that I did this. Do you think Dionysus is the way he is, fighting against society because of his time with the satyrs? Definitely in part. He's definitely, he's been raised outside of society. All of his, well, no, he was actually, so first, there's his first thing. Before he's even born, his mom is killed. He's a little nubbins. Zeus takes him, puts him in his leg. And then he's given to his mom's sister to raise, and that goes poorly. That whole entire family gets murdered. And so that's him. She's like a princess of Thebes. So he's then raised in like outside of society, and I think that definitely has an effect for it. I think it's also intrinsic to him. He is a god who he's the god of wine, which causes drunkenness. And wine is not intrinsically a bad thing, but too much wine causes people to behave in a terrible way, right? Or it can, doesn't always. And also he is a god of madness. That's like a huge part of his persona, is that he brings, everything about him is breaking rules and traditions that come before him. So, but yeah, I feel like being raised by the satyrs probably didn't help to dissuade him from that path. Let's see, I guess. What about when you face Zeus the wrong number of fingers? Gabe's, oh, yeah, this is a reference to when you face Zeus with the wrong number of fingers. It's not Zeus. On the cover of Zeus, man, you know what? I'm going to get up for a second. I'm sorry. Hopefully I won't fall down because I'm surrounded by boxes. So I actually grabbed a copy of Zeus because I wasn't so far away from it that I couldn't go off camera for a second. This is the cover of Zeus, first book in the series, very important to me. Zeus himself has the right number of fingers, 4 fingers and a thumb on each finger, but on each hand. But here, this is a big mistake. This is Kronos. Look at his hands. 1, 2, 3 fingers and a thumb. He's not supposed to have 3 fingers and a thumb. It's on the cover. It's a mistake. A lot of times people will point this, when I point this out to people, because almost nobody notices this. This is something I've noticed, and I love to point it out to people. And they always try to come, they're always like, oh, well, it's probably behind the lightning bolt. It's not. If you have a copy at home, look, you can even see a little stripe of purple. I have the original pencils here and the original artwork. It's definitely I only drew 3 fingers. But I love that. I like making mistakes because it's actually a good reason for me to point out to people like you who were watching this, who I think it was CV Kulama was saying how it's really hard to learn how to draw a style. Hey, it's hard for everybody to draw. And I liked this as an example of nobody draws perfectly. I am so far from being the best artist in the world, but I am a very fortunate person that I make a good living doing this. This is what I do for a living. I draw comics. I'm so lucky. It's what I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid, and I've been fortunate to grow up enough to do it. And even so, even this is what I do all the time, and this is like my main job, and I spend all my time doing this, I still make these huge mistakes, including like on the cover of this book. I didn't know how many fingers to count. I like to point that out because, hey, if you ever draw a picture and you screw something up, don't get disheartened. Just be like, all right, well, I'm human. Humans make mistakes. We all make mistakes. This is what happens. And, going forward, I won't make that mistake again. Or maybe I will, but it's okay because that happens. And just remember, even George, who, this is the first book in his series. There's hundreds of thousands of copies of this book in print. It's super important. And they all have a huge mistake on the cover. And I'm totally cool with that. Totally cool. It's awesome, actually. Let's see what else we got. Did you know that there is a strand of myth where Prometheus is the son of Hera and a Gigante? I do not, Scott Saglione, and I would love if you could find... I'll have to look that up. That's interesting. I would love to know if you know who was the mythographer that wrote that one down. Because there's always like weird versions. But I'm always particularly interested in ones where Hera has relations outside of Zeus. Because I have my own pet theory that there's probably a strain of myths that have been lost to us where she and Argus Panoptis were an item. And I kind of maybe even write my books that is a little bit of subtext that I have in mind, although it's like super subtextual. But that would be really interesting to see. T. Mackey responds to my thing, the Fates Furies conflation is one of the reasons I was deeply impressed with Olympians 1. Thanks! I mean, I feel like it was an astute, if I may say that about myself, I feel like it was at least an educated piece of conflation I came up with. But sometimes I'm very cognizant of this. How about this? I know, speaking of the fact that my series has been well received, I'm very fortunate that for a lot of people, Olympians is the way they learn Greek mythology. And sometimes I'm just kind of like, I feel like, should I have done something that hewed closer to the original source materials? And then, if I think about it, I'm like, no, because, I also do it in Hades, where I give Prometheus, I give Persephone more of a say in her own story. I'm deliberately putting my own spin on these stories, often to kind of show, a more feminist tilt, or just show a version, to shed light on aspects of the myth that have just been kind of obscured, try to, sometimes restore things, I think, where they originally got lost in subsequent retellings. So I guess I'm actually cool with it. It's just something I think of sometimes, because it was the first notable departure I could do from the source material. Yeah, he goes, wow, all the figures. Yes, there's, you're only seeing in that view, you're probably only seeing about half of them, maybe not even. This is my Masters of the Universe collection. There's a lot of them. Few hundred at least. It's kind of my pride and joy. I'm a huge fan of Masters of the Universe. It's one of my favorite things in the world, like He-Man, Skeletor, stuff like that. I'm more of a Merman fan myself. I love it. Scott wrote back, it's in the Scholia for the Venetius A manuscript of the Iliad. Really? Okay, that's super interesting that it's in the Iliad. Now, of course, we mentioned a lot of the Homeric stuff is kind of out there and weird, but I'm gonna have to look that up. What do you use other than grip pen to ink your work? Do you use Bush or Sea Wave and Artemis and the shades? A brush, I think you meant. Yeah, I use different brushes. Here's one. It's a number 2 watercolor synthetic. It's a little bit distorted right now because it's near the end of its life. I also use... Here's another one, just a little bit younger, but I use that. That's pretty much it. I'll color in all the black areas with that. Sometimes if I'm doing an area where it's a complete silhouette, something like this, right? Actually, the original artwork of this I didn't. But nowadays, I wouldn't color in all those stars like this. I would do that digitally, because I'd draw the figure, I would color it all in black digitally, and then I would take a white paintbrush digitally and draw in all the stars. Back when I did this piece of artwork, I literally painted it all black ink and then took white paint and dyed it and everything. I don't do that anymore. If Helen is the most beautiful in the world, where does Psyche stand? That's a great question. Now, of course, we could take into consideration, this is from Haven Olivia, or Have No Olivia, or whoever your name is. We could take into consideration that they might not be contemporaries. That Helen may have already, she might have actually come later. We have it here. Helen and Psyche. Did we talk about this one already? I wonder if I said the same answer. I feel like they just weren't alive at the same time, so that's going to be my excuse. But it also could be, I'm just going to throw out a different thing I'm pretty sure I didn't say last time. Perhaps Psyche, her name meaning soul or spirit, perhaps she's not beautiful in the physical sense. She's beautiful in a more... a harder way to pin down, like she's a beautiful soul that transcends physicality. That makes sense, right? Because if Eros of all people is going to choose someone to fall in love with, is he just going to go for a pretty face? I mean, he's surrounded by goddesses. I mean, probably not going to go for his mom because that'd be icky. but like, you know, there's goddesses everywhere. Like, so maybe he was going for something that was on a, like, resonant on a deeper level, like a soul level for her. Let's see what... She certainly was enough to drive... Yeah, she was certainly good enough to drive Aphrodite bonkers. But see, that might play into my idea here at T. Mackey. Maybe, like, maybe the reason Aphrodite, who is, you know, just by virtue of being Aphrodite, incomparably beautiful, no one can match her. But that's on a physical level, right? So maybe she was able to sense there was some, like, inner light, some sort of soul to Psyche that, like, she didn't have, that was enough to make her... Or if she didn't have, she felt threatened. It's hard to imagine Aphrodite being truly threatened in physical looks department by anybody, because she's Aphrodite. But if someone had a beautiful soul, and I believe Aphrodite has a beautiful soul too, but she's kind of all-powerful, so it's kind of easy to become corrupted that way. You know, like we say, the gods do terrible things, the gods do beautiful things. So maybe, like, that was enough to make Aphrodite get kind of envious. Yeah, so, I just use pens and brush. That's it entirely. That's the two things. And, like, really, it is... These 3 items right here, this is pretty much what I have drawn the entirety of Dionysus with. Oh, wait, no, there's a couple more pens. But they're just variations on this, just, you know, in the intermediate stage. That's it, pretty much. It's pretty low tech. And then I do touch-ups digitally. So, there'll be some of that, too. Did it come up in the Helen episode? Man, it must have, because I haven't actually done, we're talking in reference to the Psyche and Helen thing, I haven't actually done a Psyche episode. There's a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is it would be a long episode, for starters, just a lot of research in it, and I've been kind of not having a lot of time for research. So I've mentioned this before, after I finish Dionysus, I'm going to immediately start working on a 4-book series called Asgardians, retelling Norse mythology. I'm going to do those, and then the plan is I'm going to come back to doing more Greek mythology. And top of the list of stories I want to do is Eros and Psyche. Like, really want to, like put my spin on that. And it was almost in. I have notes. I did a lot of sketches for Eros and Psyche. There was going to be an Aphrodite, and it ultimately got cut because it just didn't fill into the general thesis of Aphrodite. It was too much of a side thing. It really doesn't put Aphrodite in a great light, and this was supposed to be Aphrodite's story, not Aphrodite's story in relation to her son. So it got cut. But I've always, like, that's top of the list of stories I want to tell. And sometimes if you tell a story you want to tell, if you tell it, like, one way, like, if I were to tell it talking to all of you, as opposed to telling it in my comics, I might lose the steam that I have to do it in my comics. It's a lot easier to talk about it than it is to draw it. So I don't know. I've been kind of hesitant to attach that story just because there's a lot of spot for me to make interpretations, a lot of decisions, and I just don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Me still is thinking on a Viking Norse mythology inspired idea besides Kingdom and Realms and Space Realm idea. I don't actually get those references, TV Kalama, but if you're going to do some Norse comics, I'd love to see them. So we're almost, thank you for his team. We're almost done. I just started the countdown. Thank you all for joining me on this kind of low-tech one. So like I said, Geek Speaks Greek is moving to Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's just been too busy lately. Meetings, drawing. I barely drew anything today. Like this, I mean, I ended up, you guys had a lot of questions, which was great, but now I got to draw. Well, actually, now I got to take a phone call, and then I got to draw afterwards. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I'll see you on Tuesday. I'm hoping that over the weekend, as I'm packing, I will find the original artwork for Zeus, and I could kind of go over some of the artwork, and we could talk about some of the stuff that went into the making of the first volume of Olympians. And if not, there's a lot of other gods and goddesses I can cover. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you all on Tuesday. All right, goodbye, everybody.